Well, when it comes to either noticing or missing signs in daily life, the biggest challenge is letting those signs kind of seep into our lives and letting us listen to them and pay attention. That's the premise of one of my favorite stories. There are stories that pastors don't tell in the pulpit, and there are some that are safe to tell in the pulpit. So I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you a safe pastor joke this morning. So there was this woman who was stuck on her rooftop in a terrible flood. You may have heard this before. She was praying to God to help. And very soon, a man in a rowboat came by, and he shouted to the woman, "Jump in. I can save you." Stranded lady shouted back, No, it's okay. I'm praying to God, and He's going to save me." So the rowboat went on. Then a motorboat came by, and the guy in the motorboat shouted, "Come in, jump. I can save you." To this, the stranded woman said, "No, thanks. I'm praying to God, and He is going to save me. I have faith." So the motorboat went on. Then a helicopter came by, and the pilot shouted down, "Grab this rope, and I will lift you to safety." To this, the stranded woman said again, "No, thanks. I'm praying to God, and He is going to save me. I have faith." So the helicopter reluctantly flew away. Well, pretty soon the water rose above the rooftop, and the woman drowned. She went to heaven. She finally got to her chance to discuss this whole situation with God, at which point she exclaimed, "I had faith in you, but you didn't save me. You let me down. I don't understand why." To this, God replied, "I sent you a rowboat and a motorboat and a helicopter. How many signs did you expect?" And that's kind of the way things are going for us these days. We see the flood waters rising. We've lost a lot of what made us previously feel safe and secure. All by ourselves, up on our roof. These days we feel alone and abandoned. Where is God in all of this? Why doesn't God talk to us? Actually, the reason I decided to do this topic today is someone said to me after the baptism last week here. One person told me about the tragic losses in her family and how they desperately needed help to understand it all. And now, even on a happy day like Mother's Day, or even more, perhaps more, because on a day like this, some of us are missing our moms, we need to look for God among the floodwaters. We need to be able to see God's signs. To tell you the truth, there's a lesson in the New Testament that most of us haven't read. It's in the book of Acts, and not everybody has read the book of Acts. It's the Apostle Paul who's with the Greeks. It's in one of their courts where they hold trials, and also there are religious shrines. It's called the Areopagus. And he was seeking to teach them about the one true God and His Son. So in this book of Acts, this is what it says. And this is important for us today. So Paul took his stand in the open space at the Areopagus and laid it out for them. It's plain, he said, "It's plain to see that you Athenians take your religion seriously. When I arrived here the other day, I was fascinated with all the shrines I came across. And then I found one inscribed, 'To the God that nobody knows.' I'm here to introduce you to this God so you can worship intelligently and know who you're dealing with. The God who made the world and everything in it. This master of sky and land doesn't live in a custom-made shrine. or need the human race to run errands for him, as if he couldn't take care of himself. He makes the creatures. The creatures don't make him. Starting from scratch, he made the entire human race and made the earth hospitable, with plenty of time and space for living, so we could seek after God and not just fumble around in the dark, but actually find him. He doesn't play hide and seek with us. He's not remote. He's near. We live and move in him and can't get away from him. One of your poets said it well: we're the God created. So the actual truth of the matter is God is around us and with us all the time, but we're too anxious or sad a lot of the times recently to see the signs. Remember, we Congregationalists, we're the ones, I have to remind people of this, we're the ones who said that God is still speaking. You see it on our signs, you see it out front. God is still speaking. God didn't close the book on faith and Scripture at the end of the 2nd century. The thing you have to take into account, though, is rarely does God speak with a bullhorn to get your attention. Yeah, there are those of you who, whenever you see a red cardinal in a tree, you believe that someone that you've lost is saying hello, and I salute you. That's a sign. As the writer Dana Arcuri said, as we grow our faith, we wait in silence. As we listen for his voice, we have hope that he will speak. It may not be a loud boom or thunder, but a soft whisper. He may use a song, a butterfly, a sermon, a stranger, or even a red cardinal. But there is hope that God will come through for us. And it's hard, I know, to wait for the gift of a sign of reassurance. But that's just the thing. We are surrounded every day by sources of beauty and joy that can radiate God's presence in the everyday. God will use the things of sky and land to let us know. And very often there are small things in this universe that speak for him. I want to tell you a couple of encounters I've had. Some years ago when I was with Whitby School in backcountry Greenwich, one of our 3-year-old little girls, Erin, who had a failing heart from birth, died. We created a butterfly garden in Erin's memory. And on the day that we dedicated the butterfly garden, friends and even some bigwigs from up in Hartford on the legislature, because they knew the parents, came down for the ceremony. And this is the absolute truth. This is what happened. As Erin's parents were standing there, a small yellow butterfly came out of nowhere and landed on Erin's mother's shoulder. And there it stayed for most of the dedication ceremony. And I can tell you, the most interesting thing is, in one instant, the most honored guest at that dedication were not the politicians. It was that one little yellow butterfly. Perhaps the most important time to be open to signs is at the worst times in your life. You've had worse times. I've had worse times. Pastors are not immune to worse times. Our bedroom window at home is one large pane of smooth glass on the outside, and hanging on the inside I have an angel made out of white sheer seashells. And one morning, a bad morning, after a rather tragic loss, I was deeply depressed, and I was crying on the edge of the bed, feeling totally alone, facing a lot of problems after that. You know, my mother had died decades before, and the rest of my family, too. So there was no one to talk to. Through my tears, I asked God to show me somehow that things were going to be all right, that I wasn't alone. And at that very moment, true story again, a small brown sparrow outside my window began to flutter against the glass. He was right behind that angel, so it almost looked like his wings belonged to the angel. There was nothing to hold him up, for him to hold on to. There was no frame. It was sheer glass. But he did this in front of me for more than a minute. I was transfixed. And I said to God, "Thank you." And it turned out it was all right after that. Sometimes our own self-importance can blind us to the incredible signs that are being unfolded nearby, the joy, the beauty. If they're there, if we only choose to look. We have to choose to look. Years ago, there was a group of us when I was in healthcare that took advantage of this really deep discount in the middle of the winter to go up to Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires. I mean, it was a deep discount. We had no money, so we got it to go for 3 days. And I was so stressed out from launching major campaigns for visiting nurse services at that time. And I needed every one of those 3 days to kind of come down from the stress and the exhaustion. So on the very last night of our stay, I was finally kind of at peace. I was able to see things. And I was sitting in the library before dinner was going to be served by a roaring fire, looking out the window. It was a brilliant full moon, and I mean brilliant, shining down on all this white snow, as if there was a light on outside. And suddenly, quietly, a beautiful red fox trotted into the field. And he began to leap and spin and leap again in the moonlight, as if in the sheer joy of being, he was free in his spirit. And then just at that point, one of the other guests stomped into the room. I pointed out the window to her and said, "Look, isn't that beautiful?" She looked at me, she scowled at me and said, "Yeah, sure, whatever. I just hope they don't give away my favorite seat at dinner, because I'm going to raise hell if they do." She didn't see. You can't make someone see. We have to choose to see the Master's hand around us. After all that's happened in the last couple of years, we can easily fall into the trap of seeing only the negative around us. It's like a form of PTSD, post-traumatic stress, that blocks our vision. You know, I was over at the hospital talking on the phone to the hospital Friday, and my colleague in spiritual care was telling me how stressed the staff is and how short-staffed, because people just can't take it anymore and are walking away. You know, it comes to the point, and I've seen it before, that the hospital staff has seen so much suffering, they think the whole world is bleeding. It's not. What they need is the light of God's hand just to endure. The signs of God's presence may be subtle, as I've said, like the touch of a hand, or somebody who cares for you and tells you that they've included you in their prayers. Or it may be something like a big dog kiss, or a little purr, or being placed in someone's care, or someone who at home elects all by himself to do the dishes, or even a cardinal perched in a tree. When we choose to be open to the subtle signs of God being present, We don't need a rowboat or a motorboat or a helicopter to keep us from drowning. We just need to choose to listen silently in a different kind of prayer that silence is. As Mother Teresa said, prayer is not asking. Prayer is not asking. Prayer is putting oneself in the hands of God, at His disposition, and listening to His voice in the depths of our hearts. You know, when I first started this message, I was curious as to what you would call a group of red cardinals. You know, the way you talk about geese as a gaggle of geese or chickens as a brood of chickens. And so I had to look it up, and I found it. It's a radiance of cardinals. So on this Mother's Day, and as you continue on your journey through the dark moments of life, I wish you the vision to see signs from God, a radiance of cardinals to light your way. Blessings to you all. Amen.
My shepherd, you supply my need. Most holy is your name. In pastures fresh you make me feed beside the living stream. You bring my wandering spirit back when I forsake your way. You lead me for your mercy's sake in paths of truth and grace. Your sure provisions, gracious God, attend me all my days. Oh, may your house be my abode, and all my work be praise. Here would I find a settled rest, while others go and come. No more a stranger nor a guest, but like a child